Okay, should be good to go. Thank you. Oh, and you can share again. Take your presentation down.
All right. Okay, so getting rolling here again. This is another portfolio slide. Now, I took this from HPE. I might take the wording out of it. It makes it a little busy. But I started thinking with this current launch of the B10000 that there's a different avenue we can come at it with. And I'm going to get into more details on that. But really what I'm trying to show you here is not only do we have a block array portfolio, but we have a huge data protection portfolio that really complements our block arrays. So if we look at the B10000, right, it's available standalone or it's available as a converged system, which we'll talk about next week, the Private Cloud Business Edition with DHCI. And then we have our Zerto software, right? It's been 5 years since HP bought Zerto, right? It's been a very, very advantageous software product. I like to tell partners, yes, I know it's expensive, but I'm not necessarily telling you to go in and sell Zerto for every single VM a customer has, especially if they're a smaller customer with a limited budget. But go in if they have multiple sites and they're really worried about data protection. Maybe they just have a couple VMs that are critical, right? So have those conversations. It makes it a lot more affordable when you're only protecting a subset of your VMs, but the ones that really are going to keep their business afloat if they do have some type of ransomware attack or outage or natural disaster. And then, of course, we've got a slew of backup solutions. We've got our cyber resiliency vault, which basically air gaps your data for those larger customers that are looking for an air gap vault. We definitely have cyber resiliency vault. I'm really excited. Plan to do a webinar in about a month or so on the new StoreOnce systems. HP finally came back out with those entry systems, which were so popular with Fed and SLED accounts. So they're going to have a nice entry system that's going to have a nice price tag. So be on the lookout in that. It's already an OCA. It's already quotable. So a great complement to your B10000. And then of course we've got some, our really Cadillac object storage that's going to provide super fast backup, and then our complementary, we get along with Cohesity, Commvault, and Veeam very, very well. Other than that, we've got our tape storage. CloudBank works with StoreOnce. If you want to push some data up in the cloud, you got AWS presence or Azure presence. You could do that for a very affordable factor. But what I want to say is not only do we want to look at block portfolio, but we want to look at how we're going to protect it. And I think that's really important as we move forward, because ransomware is not about when, about if, it's about when, right? So we want to keep that in mind. So let's talk about our B10000 value proposition, and I'm going to span a few slides on this. But the Alletra Storage MP B10000, right? The under the covers history is it's built on that 3-part, DNA. But it's been evolved, right? It's been progressed. There's lots of overhauling that's been done on, let's say, the deduplication, on the compression, right? They've taken little snippets from Nimble and they've went ahead and said, that's a better way of doing it, right? So we've kind of orchestrated or put those two arrays best practices together and built on that robustness of the 3-par. So it's a really exciting array. For anybody that knows me, they know that I absolutely adore that platform. So I'm really glad to see it progress. So basically, this array is a mission critical storage array at mid-range economics. Like I said, if you look at this array and you're like, oh my God, it's going to be too expensive, stop right there. Take a look at a quote. We're happy to help you make that happen. And let's show you how affordable it is and how entry level you can get it. So this is a disaggregated array, and I'm going to go a little more into detail. But basically, it allows you to go ahead and scale out, right? You can scale controllers, you can scale storage, and you got that 100% availability guarantee. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So simplified management, right? We've got that AI managed cloud experience. So when you go into the interface, it feels like you're managing a cloud space, right? You've got some predictive analytics in there to tell you, hey, listen, this volume is running out of storage. Or you could go in there and say, if I apply deduplication, would I save anything? And it'll report back showing, yes, you'd save this much, right? Real-time insights into what's going on in your environment. If you loaded a firmware and there were some issues with it, right? You get full stack visibility. So if you sold that PCBE solution, for instance, with not only the storage, but with the HPE servers and maybe even switching, you kind of get that full visibility to that overall platform. But even if you didn't, if you sold the storage with the separate servers, again, you still go into that same GreenLake Cloud Platform to get that visibility to those environments. So you got fleet management, you can go in and there's an intent provisioning. You can go in and say, listen, I've got these multiple storage arrays. I have this volume. Which one should I put it on? It'll help you through that. And then one of my favorite things is it really helps you through that upgrade process, right? No longer are the days where you're calling and waiting on hold with HPE, right? That's more of a self-service kind of motion as we move forward with our new arrays. Again, get the kind of cloud experience, or definitely cloud experience, simplifies deployment. You got easy upgrades. You can go in and self-manage, self-provision, right? Everything's all in one space, which is very, very nice. Now, we talked about being disaggregated. So what do I really mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is that I have the ability to go ahead and buy a smaller system, right? And if I buy these 16 core systems, I can add 2 drive enclosures, right? So what you don't see under the covers, and what I like to touch on, is that there's 2 controllers in this box, 2 controllers in that box, 2 controllers in that box. Our 8-core system priced super well. Like if you have a customer, they're not looking for uber fast write performance or write wear and tear on those QLC drives, you could get an 8-core system with 8 drives and it will be super affordable and it will give you over 100 terabytes of storage. No problem. I've seen it a ton, especially we go up against the Alletra 5000. These 16 core and 32 core systems, though, they allow for expansion. They've got a little more beef under the covers. They got a little more processing power, some additional cache. There's 2 controllers in the box. There's also 24 drive capabilities. You can add minimum of 8, scale up to 24. But one thing to consider is both of those controllers can see all those drives. They have access to all those drives. There's no drive that is assigned to a controller. Okay, so when you go ahead and you expand, we expand over Ethernet. Again, each of those controllers are seeing all of the drives in the array. So when we talk about disaggregated, right, we're saying, hey, these controllers are independent. They share everything, right? There's nothing assigned like our competitors, right, where if something happens, one affects the other. If my one node goes down, all of its assignments and processes fail over to the other node, and it's really seamless. Now, when I move up into the big boy systems, right, then we have only controller boxes. So this is a 2 controller box. This is a 2 controller box. So you can have a total of 4 controllers currently, right? And then, or you could start out with 2, right? But here you have a picture of 4. You've got some inherent switching, which is only for connectivity to the drive enclosures and the controllers. And then all of your spinning disks, or I shouldn't say spinning disks, all of your NVMe disks are in their own dedicated enclosures. So these controllers don't own anything. They share everything. All those drives are accessible to all those controllers, and that's kind of unique with our architecture. Always been a positive with 3PAR, but now they've taken it even further, where again, all 4 of your controllers can now see all of your drives, and everything's shared because it's shared over that Rocky IP footprint. Again, all active architecture for ultra-fast performance, right? You don't have any redundancy or reliance on storage with control nodes. We talked about it's disaggregated. As we have those beefier systems on the right, I could add more controllers, right, and not have to add storage if I need more performance. More likely, I probably have plenty of performance and I need to go ahead and add more storage. So that is not a problem. It's disaggregated because it's independently scalable. I just want to call out support because I don't see HP put a lot of slides behind it, but I got to tell you, over the years, I've heard good and bad support, but for this call center, this is the traditional nimble call center, I've never heard a bad thing. Knock on wood, but I've never heard a bad thing. John in our BTC has had a bunch of experiences, right, where they call him and say, hey, your array's got a cache module, looks a little wonky. We shipped you one yesterday. You should be receiving it today. Can you just go ahead and swap those out so we can get this case off our desk? Seriously, happens, right? A drive. Hey, John, your drive is kind of having a problem. We're going to ship you one. I'll be there this afternoon. Go ahead and swap that out for us. I promise you. I had a partner sell a array a couple years ago. There was something wrong with the controller power supply. He called for something else and they said, hey, by the way, we are reaching out to you. You have a power supply issue. We'll have that power supply out to you by 2 o'clock. Now this is Arizona. And he's like, yeah, right. The guy goes on the phone. He's like, you know what? You're right. It probably won't be till 3. I need to call a carrier. He's like, oh, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? It's not going to get here. So he's sitting at his desk, 2:30 comes around, right? He's like, oh yeah, I knew they weren't going to get it. 3 comes around and he goes, his mailman, after 3, his mail guy comes down with his cart and goes, hey, this box came for you about an hour ago. Were you looking for this, right? So he's like, oh gosh, they made it. You know what I mean? Like kind of one of those new customer experiences where he couldn't believe it. But anyway, I've had a lot of that. There's a lot of proactivity. When you call in, Nimble used to like to say, hey, listen, when you call in, you're at level 3 because we've already done all the proactive stuff. If you have an outage, we're probably going to contact you or call you about it. You're probably not going to have to contact us. Something I really like about this is all the analytic data goes up, not your data, but what's going on in the array goes up into the cloud. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to take all that data and compare it to all the other systems that are the same around the world. And you're going to see updates that are blocked for your system. And that's a great thing because what they're doing is they're going to say, okay, this wasn't qualified for your system. We're going to wait till the next update, right? You don't ever want to install something that's going to upset your apple cart. So that's something that's really well done in this the support entity. So we talked about 100% availability guarantee. It is what it is. There is no questions, right? There's like 3 caveats. You got to have a current support contract. You got to be on the current firmware. And there was something else that, it has to be phoning home, right? So those are all givens, right? These are always going to be phoning home with those analytics. You're always going to have support if you expect support. And then, you should be updating your firmware within a good month. Month and a half after the firmware is launched on the array, which is again much easier to do nowadays. If you have an outage, HPE is going to compensate you in some way, so they have that much credibility behind this guarantee. All right, what's new? This slide was cute. I decided to grab it. Let's go ahead and I'm going to probably go in different order. So first thing, this is my favorite. What's new? We have native ransomware detection now in our array with release 5. I'm very excited about this. I think it's just such a cool update. When you buy a company like Zerto, and Zerto is so interesting and such a resiliency, gives your customers such resiliency, it's really cool when a vendor takes it and then incorporates another product and doesn't charge you anything for it on top of it, right? So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this slide, which I took HP's and kind of wiggled into my own. But basically, my perspective in going into B10000 opportunities now is I really think I want to turn around and I want to start talking about resiliency. Of course, it performs amazing. It has all sorts of features, right? But this is such a newer kind of perspective for me that now we can say, well, let's talk about how secure your data is, right? So first I have all my drives are self-encrypting. I have FIPS and non-FIPS, depending on whether it's a government entity that needs to have that FIPS compliancy. But all in all, I have FIPS and I have all self-encrypting drives. So they're at a hardware encryption. If somebody pulled out the drive and tried to use it, all that data on there is encrypted, okay? Then I have something called virtual lock. Virtual lock is the ability to create immutable snapshots. And although that capability is awesome, and I encourage you to use it, I also encourage you to consider what you're doing. Don't set up a snapshot for 7 years because you can't delete it, right? So just be very cautious knowing that when you go in and set up a snapshot, you can always extend the time window, but you're not going to be able to delete a virtual lock snapshot. So just keep that in mind as you're planning your resiliency factors. When you set up a customer's array, snapshots need to be the top priority on your list before you walk out the door. Go ahead and get them protected. Not all of them have to be virtual lock, but you have the feature. It's free. It's incorporated in the system. Why not go ahead and use it? So why would I want to use virtual lock snapshots? Because again, they're immutable. Nobody can go in and alter them or change them. So if they did have a ransomware issue, right? Let's say I took a snapshot this Friday, and next Friday they realized they had a intrusion. Potentially, you can go back and you have a snapshot that wasn't altered, right? No ransomware got in there and encrypt it because the array doesn't disallows that and doesn't allow you to do that. So dual authorization, role-based access control, another couple things to allow you to protect. detect, I put my little R5 notation here. This is where that Zerto piece comes in. So HPE went ahead and they incorporated the Zerto anomaly detection with no additional licensing on the array. So when ransomware encrypts files, there's a significant, increase in randomness of the data, right? So it randomizes your data. This can be detected by an array with this functionality, right? You can enable it at a volume or a volume set level, and you can set the sensitivity. So let's say you go in, the medium sensitivity is set, and you're like, I'm getting too many alerts. You can go ahead and make it a low sensitivity. Let's say something's really critical and you're really worried, you can set it a high sensitivity. What happens with the data, though, is it comes in and it goes ahead and the array takes random snippets of it and it runs it through two algorithms and kind of gets a baseline for what that volume expectation is. So it should be a real smart and a real sensitive ability. And I'm really excited about it because competitively speaking, I think we've done it better than our competition. No performance impact, less than 5% in testing. They've seen, they said even less, less than 5%. So they don't feel like it's going to be anything that'll dissuade a customer from using it. Now to respond, what happens if this detects something? Well, alert is generated and sent out to you in DSCC. Then the array immediately creates an immutable snapshot for analysis. Now you might be like, well, why would I want a snapshot if my array is compromised? Well, the snapshot's not for recovering. The snapshot's for analysis. They want you to be able to go back to your data and they want you to be able to compare to this last snapshot that's again immutable, so you can compare and see what data has changed, so you can make an educated decision on whether there's an issue or not. Now you can go in, you have the ability to extend any retention time. That immutable snapshot is good for 48 hours, you can make it longer. You can go in your current snapshots, you can make them longer, right? So there's a lot of flexibility when we have those recovery points on our array. Now, hopefully, right, if this does happen, your first stop is your immutable array snapshot, you can recover and be back up and running, right? If not, then you'll have to go progress through your backup strategy and see, how far back that infiltration goes. And then, of course, as you move forward, now you have your policies in place, you have your monitor results. There's a bunch of white papers down here you can go ahead and take a look at. HP's put a lot through this, and I really, really appreciate the perspective of, wait, this is not only a block array, this is also taking a next step into protecting my data, and I think that's just so valuable. Okay, second big feature, file services on the Alletra B10000. Okay, so this, I want to say, is phase one. Okay, so we're just scratching the surface. But if any of you have been around for the past three-part technologies, file persona was a technology, and it was a little bit shaky, but it was something that went away with the current generations. HP decided, listen, the market wants this. Not at a high performance perspective, but just at the ability, like for example, deployment of SAP HANA, right? You have an SAP HANA database on block storage, and they require an NFS file share for their log files for the databases, right? Well, what a great opportunity for you to carve out a few terabytes of storage on the same array. So you're backing it all up together, you're managing it all together, you're having it all in the same place versus requiring that SAP HANA customer to go out and invest in a separate NAS file share. So that's the kind of use cases that we're looking at. Next step is our user home directories, which will be kind of advantageous to be able to have Windows home users go out and save their files. And then they also have some virtualization workloads planned. So as they test those, they'll go ahead and launch those with future launches. The things that are not going to be qualified are the file serving needs where there's billions of small files, or where they have large video files and you're doing rendering and content delivery. Those units are meant to be a focus, right? Like a Cumulo or our GreenLake for file storage, right? Those are meant to be high performance, and that's all that system does. And in addition to housing those, they also have some indexing capabilities, right? Where they can go in and they can, show you where it is and allow you to go ahead and navigate through those files. So that this array is not going to go ahead and be that. This array is going to continue to be primarily block with a little bit of files. So it's an NFS file share. It is currently supported with Red Hat and Linux. No additional licenses are required once you update to release 5. File shares are spread across all nodes evenly. Although the maximum capacity is 64, the maximum total file capacity is 20% of the overall array. And then it requires our 10/25 adapter installed in slot 4. Ingram's always happy to help you guys put together configurations, navigate through remembering all this. I just wanted to call this out as a cool new feature, especially if you're going up against the competition. Now you can go, got it. Right? What are you using the file for? Oh, you're just using it for, some, container workloads. Great. Okay, got it. And you can move on and not have to worry about it. Or the customer that goes, well, I don't really use the file, but I wanted to have the capability. Now you got it, right? Check mark. And then away you go.
And
All
you're
right.
about
Yes.
25 minutes in, like you wanted me to let you know.
35, right?
25. Okay, never mind.
Sorry. Other noteworthy release 5 highlights. I didn't put this on there and I had it on that slide. There's an ability to go ahead and license the B10000 in AWS. That's been out for about a year. Now we can do it in Azure, right? So just keep that in mind if you want to go ahead and have, let's say, your physical array on site and you want to look like you have the physical array up in the cloud. That capability is now there. It was there with AWS for the past year. Now it's there with Azure. As far as other things, just some cool stuff. You can, for non-switch systems, you can have a third fiber channel HPA if you need more ports. Scalability is now up to 384 drives. That's a lot. 8 gig fiber channel support, believe it or not, there are some large customers out there that actually still have 8 gig. You have long range optics support with your iSCSI. Service enhancements, you just got some automatic logs. You've got some snapshot scheduling the array is going to manage itself. And then the onboard UI will actually allow you to do some real-time reporting and keep it in the template. Pure motion support, we had 3-part to B10000 over fiber channel. Now we have it to iSCSI. We had Nimble to B10000 over iSCSI. Now we have fiber channel. So now we can do both protocols on both platform migrations. We did some password updating, fiber channel initiator upgrades, and then capacity configurations, which I'll get to in a minute, no longer have a DER requirement. All right, I threw this together. This is what I got by just instant pricing. This is not escalated or anything like that. You can absolutely escalate this. What I want to say is that an entry-level configuration is very inexpensive. HP's got some other promotions out there. Just take advantage of it. Again, this is without me even trying. Okay, so this is like a $210,000 configuration. This is without escalation. This product is priced to sell if you get a little more aggressive than my precursor work. I want to go into Ninja Online. I'm going to push through this for a moment. This is HPE's new Future Ready program. They've got, we talked about the 100% data availability guarantee. There's a store more guarantee, which guarantees a customer on their compactable data will get a certain data compaction. Timeless, there's a 30-day satisfaction guarantee, all-inclusive licensing we already talked about, and there's a few more guarantees that they've just thrown in here. In the bottom of the slide are all the links for all these details. I'm just going to go over a couple. Ooh, they did transitions. Timeless program. If you're competing against Pure's Evergreen, might be something you want to consider. Basically, HPE says, listen, if you commit to us for 8 years, right, we'll give you a free controller upgrade. Your array will stay up to date over those 8 years, right? So basically, you'd purchase the array. Let's say you purchased a 4-year warranty, right? Then at the end of the 4 years, you purchase the additional 4. In the meantime, at 3 years or beyond, you can go ahead and get a new controller refresh and the array basically comes new. You respect all of your install capacity. If anyone sold Timeless previously, it's a little similar, a little different. We're happy to help you through any questions you have, but I just wanted to talk about Timeless program. Came out with it about 6-9 months ago, and I just feel like, and the category manager just said, hey, listen, can you go ahead and make sure you cover it? So now we've covered it. All right, capacity sizing and store more guarantee, right? This is the guarantee when you purchase the array that your data that's compactable will get a 4-to-1 data reduction. Competitively speaking, this is nice to have. Really no questions, really no fine lines. The only thing is that if you got a bunch of video storage, We know that's not compactable, so that doesn't count in this ratio. So this is all about what data is actually can receive data compaction. All right, I just want to call this out too. Alletra 6000, Alletra 9000, and Primera, the second time, all reached end of life June 1st. These are embedded for you. If you have customers with any of these arrays, just tread lightly. If they come to you and want a really expensive upgrade, go ahead and introduce the idea. Hey, listen, I understand you're looking at, especially Primera. Primera upgrades are very expensive. Hey, listen, I know I know you want to look at upgrading this. I just want to let you know it goes end of life June 1st. Now, of course, HP is going to support it for 5 years, but I want you to think about and weigh, where your customers investing their money. If they're going to go ahead and buy a huge upgrade, maybe they buy the new array and they go ahead and replicate between them, if that's a capability like a 9000 to a B10000 or a Primera to a B10000, right? Those are some capabilities. If they're running Zerto, they could do the 6000 to the B10000. That's something we could definitely talk about. But all in all, I just want you to think, okay, HP shrunk their portfolio. I need to get in front of this messaging. If it's a Primera, they probably owned it for a long time and it might be ready to be replaced anyway. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click out of my presentation. I'm going to go over here to my window that thankfully has not logged out. This is our Ninja Online portfolio. A little later this month, you'll see a Store Once for the new Store Once models, the Gen 6s. I think it's Gen 6. No, Gen 5, forgive me. Right now, we're going to focus on block storage. I'm going to create a new configuration. Let's talk about this. Okay, this screen looks a little different if you haven't been in here a while. This 4-to-1 data reduction is HP's new default on data reduction, which is great. But I want to explain the non-reducible data. HP looked at all of their arrays around the world, believe it or not, because analytics comes from all the arrays around the world, and they said they used to do 10%, and they said on average, we are seeing on customer systems non-reducible data of 20%. Okay, so in the customer's data, about 20% of it's non-reducible. So that's why you see these defaults here. For customer that had all reducible data, right? Let's say they're all database, all files, 4-to-1, a lock. But they say of this, 20% of it is non-reducible from what they see from customers. You can, of course, change this, right? This is very changeable. Just make sure you're looking at your customer and make sure you're going to go ahead and you're going to figure that out. I want to call this out. This is the average of both. So if I have 4-to-1 and 20% of it's non-reducible, overall my data reduction is 2.5-to-1. I call this out because when you, as a technical person, maybe hand it off to your salesperson, this is going to become important. For those of you salespeople on the phone, this is important to you because HPE is now requiring us to report this information on all deal pricing escalations. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I'll get there with what I'm going to get there with, but I just want to let you know how important this is and why I felt it was a quick run through again. I'm going to hit next. I'm just going to choose a drive. You can go ahead and use this beautiful tool and, really get those QLC inexpensive drives for the customers who don't have that demand for write performance that are predominantly read. Those are very affordable options, but I'm just going to click a drive and I'm going to hit proceed, and then I can come in and mess around and take a look at what we're doing. So this new wave is new. We have over here, we have our usable capacity. Over here we have our installed capacity, and over here we have our effective capacity. So let's take a minute on that. Okay, installed means I'm going to have 8 times 3.84 terabytes, and I'm going to get roughly that. Now this is tibibytes, right? So it's actually the real translation to the capacity, but 8 times that number is right there. Now when I applied RAID, right, and here it's telling me it's a RAID 6 plus 2, that gets me 15.96 tibibytes, right? What have I done? I've taken away 2 drives. I have a little bit of overhead. All those numbers are broken down here. This tool is incredible. I haven't seen our competition have anything like it. It's very transparent, we'll say. So I want you guys to take note that everything's here that you really need to look for. Just be careful with your GIBs versus your TIBs because that'll get confusing. But if you line them all up, you're good to go. Okay. Now, over here is effective. What does this mean? Well, we talked about it, right? I've got 20% of my data right, that's non-reducible. Maybe it's PDF images, right? Who knows? The rest of my data I've sized, right? The other 80% of it is going to be files and databases. And I might get a 3.5 to 1 on my database and a 1.8 to 1 on my files. That's what HPE sees when they look around the country and they say, okay, what are our customers seeing, right? So when they go ahead and combine those two together, this is what your customer is actually going to see. Now, I'm telling you this because this is the way I want you to sell it. I started 7 years ago selling this. So come along with me if you haven't already and make sure you're properly sizing your arrays for your customers. You don't need to oversell them. The data compaction on these systems is really, really well done. We're now on par with where Nimble was a little better than us. We're now on par with Nimble, if not better. And I will tell you, if you're coming over from a 3-part 8000 or a 7000, oh my gosh, well, 8000 in particular, because it had additional features like compression and deduplication. I'm telling you right now, my customers are telling me, oh my gosh, I have so much compaction, so much savings. So just keep that in mind. So when we look at capacity, right? Let's say I went ahead and I needed more, of course, right? I want to, let's say, all right, so now I've got almost 80 TB, right? But after I factor in my 2.5 to 1, I'm upwards of just shy of 162 TB. So you're going to want to talk to your customers. I am happy, my counterparts are happy to get on the phone with your customer and we ask them, hey, let's break down your data. Let's really take a look at it and see, and they might not have any idea, or most customers roughly have an idea. Hey, I have some video storage. It's about 2 TB out of the 20 TB I have, or out of the 80 TB I have, right? Customers can kind of, when you get them talking, they're kind of thinking, yes, let me look at that volume. You know what I mean? So we can really get a pretty good idea of what's going on as far as that goes. Of course, all your IOPS are down here. If you click way down, you have some power, it shows you your power capabilities. You can change your network connectivity if you're doing fiber channel. If they decide they want file, you can come in here and put connectivity for both. You can change your power to low voltage. Of course, all of your nodes, if you do switch nodes, right, you can come in here and you can, do the higher capacity, right? Now you got a lot of different capabilities, right? Now your JBOFs go from up to 2. Now you can go up to easily, you can go up to 8, right? Or you can go up to 16. I have a performance, I can go up to 8. But if I decide, well, I don't need ultimate performance, I need ultimate capacity, well, I can flip the switch on this primary here, right? And now I can get all crazy and I can scale this way higher and I can get up to 16. Well, let's see, there we go. It's taking its time, up to 16 drive enclosures. So lots of cool capabilities with this sizer. Here's what I want to say to you. If you want to go ahead and escalate for pricing, if it's a standalone B10000 quote, go ahead and hit export BOM, and then we'll go ahead and import it into OCA. If you have a B10000 that's accompanying servers or networking or other stuff in OCA, then go ahead and hit your summary document and export your summary document. There's a couple different ways we can escalate. It's super confusing. I'm going to leave my comments to myself, but I just want you to know we have to get comfortable for this. If you're a salesperson and you got an SA, you want us to spend more time with them going through this in a understandable, slowed down method, we are happy to do that. What we don't want you to have happen is for everybody just to go ahead and run through sizing this, and then you go ahead and try to escalate it and you don't have any of this information, because it's just going to slow down your capabilities when it comes to turning around a quote for your customer. So all in all, HPE put a technical requirement on the sales side of the process. Ingram's here to help you bypass that. This tool is key to helping you get through the next step with an B10000 config and getting that pricing escalation done. All right, that was a lot. I just want to make sure you guys know all of the different things Ingram can help you, of course, with. And John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, let me share my screen. So, give me a second here. All right, I just want to make sure everybody can see my screen. Anybody? I'll take the silence as a yes.
John, we can see your screen. I'm sorry.
It's okay. All right, so I'm going to talk about the relationship between VM Essentials and the Alletra MP B10000 based systems and why you want to use them together. It's kind of your easy button for onboarding on VM Essentials, and certainly VM Essentials, if you've been following HPE, is a pretty big talking point. People want to understand, what the capabilities are. There's also a lot of the slides that you may have seen with VM Essentials. They'll talk about a plugin, and that's what I plan to show you today, is a little bit of the plugin and how it works and how you'll make your life a little bit easier. So if you don't know, my name is John Busshart. I work out of Ingram Business Transformation Center, where a lot of people describe us as a proof of concept or a demonstration facility. I'll say we're a lot more than that. I would say we have hardware in a data center. I manage a data center. However, you can leverage this hardware to be successful with your end users or your opportunities. I'm here to help you. That could certainly be kind of the point and click thing I'm going to show you today. But I've done a lot of other things. Like if I had somebody want to replicate their array into my environment and prove to their customer I could reanimate a virtual machine. I had somebody come in and just want to use the backup capabilities found within SimpliVity just to see how they work. All right, somebody wanted to come in one time and do RESTful API calls on an ILO interface. Just recently, since we're talking about VM Essentials, somebody asked me to stand up a single host cluster for their end user so they could come in and kick the tires. So I'm open to all these things. I have equipment. However you guys can leverage this to be successful, please feel free to reach out to me for help. All right. I've also been a VMware administrator for a long time. So as I talk through this, I'm going to kind of talk through this like with an VMware administrator's perspective. For example, this interface that you're looking at right here, I would say if we're comparing this to VMware, this would be most closely resembles VMware's vCenter, or your centralized management interface. So this is the HP VM Essentials Manager, right? And I could take a look at different things like incidences here. So incidence is a little bit different term than maybe what you'd find in VMware. Now this HPE's Morpheus VM Essentials is a subset of what they used to call Morpheus Platform Ops, or what they're now calling Morpheus Enterprise these days. All right, so within HPE's Morpheus VM Essentials, you can manage both VMware and VM Essentials clusters. For example, if I go over here to clouds, you'll see that I am managing both a VMware environment and a VM Essentials environment through this one management interface. That's something that's a little bit nicer than maybe what vCenter can do. In the larger Morpheus product, this could be a variety of things. This could be Kubernetes. This could be, a public cloud offerings. It could be other private cloud type of offerings. It's big. So I guess where I'm getting at, what are incidences? Incidences contain multiples of things that are configured the same. So for example, in a larger Morpheus enterprise product, we could manage a Kubernetes cluster, and I might have 100 incident. I would have one incident that contains 100 containers of like Nginx or web server or something like that, right? Now, in this platform, I'll say more often than not, these incidences will contain one virtual machine in them. So for example, if I grab this guy here, right, we could see that we're in the incident. If I scroll down, this is the one virtual machine. If I had multiple, and you can do that, multiple virtual machines, you see them kind of layer down. Now I'm spending time talking a little bit about this just to get your head wrapped around what VM Essentials is, but as well as tell you there are different things you can do at an incident level. So for example, take snapshots, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that because that's definitely an integration point with the Alletra MP. But snapshots, backups, and things, right? We can always get a console into our system over here. So if I click over here, we'll probably wake this guy up in a little bit. There we go. All right, so we come in and tinker with this guy. Something that I can do at a virtual machine level that I can't do necessarily at an incident level would be a live migration of a virtual machine. So for example, if I go down here and manage placement, right, I could change it from this host here over to this host and click Save Changes. And if we're talking VMware, this would be like the vMotion capability. So this is the live migration of virtual machines between different hosts, and we can see that happening up here, as well as if I scroll down here and I do a refresh, we'll see that happening here as well, and I can get more information. All right, so that gets our head wrapped around, VM Essentials and some of the things that I'll show you as we kind of work through this discussion. Now, when I have to go integrate shared storage in with VM Essentials, what's traditionally be done, and some of you guys have seen the video that's out there, is you do it through the Linux CLI command prompt, and with this platform, it'll be a Ubuntu environment, right? So if you've done, or your technicians have done iSCSI through VMware, through Windows, or there's those different ways of setting that up, and it's different with Linux as well. And I have actually a setting of notes over here that I keep, and these here are all the commands that I need to run. Whoops. I'm sorry for flipping the screen like that, but all these commands, all these sudo commands are what I need to run, on a single host to connect my host, my hypervisor host, up to shared storage. Now I only have to do it once, across each one of the hosts, but this is something that I have to do. And if Linux is a little bit, scary to you might not want to do that. So the easy button with inside VM Essentials is you integrating in with the Alletra MP storage-based solutions. Because what you do to have that happen is you actually bring it in through the plugin. So if I go under infrastructure and storage, and this will be storage that'll be available to the entire environment, but I could go over here to service, and here's where you could see my Alletra MP storage system. And the way you would do this is you'd click add. You'd go over here, you'd select the Alletra B10000 system, you'd give it a name, all right, you give it its IP address, you give it its credentials, and then you click Save Changes. And that would create the relationship between VM Essentials and the array. After that, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to go down to your cluster. All right, here's my VM Essentials cluster, and I'm going to go into storage. And I'm going to add the data to the storage. And basically, you're just going to give it a name, and then your storage should pop up down here. And then once that's done, that's all you need to do to get VM Essentials integrated in with your shared storage technologies. Now, if we wanted to do it in the traditional way, HPE is working, going beyond all these command lines. They're doing some things over here within the iSCSI interface to where you can add these in manually. I haven't been through that myself. Traditionally, we've always done it through the kind of the Linux prompt, but I'm told this is something that's new. But still, this doesn't solve all the things that you need to do, as far as creating the volume, masking the volume out on the array, and things like that. All right, once I have this integrated, I can start creating incidences with this. So let's take a look at these virtual machines and how they'll look on the array. So a lot of times with the marketing material wrapped around this integration, you'll see that the volumes will act a lot like what in VMware's world, like a vval type of volume. And I would say that's true. But what they mean about that is if you take a look at the management of the array, and this is the local management interface, right? So just keep in mind, I should be using the GreenLake platform and using data services up here, right? As well as going into something like block storage. Now, the nice thing about managing out of the cloud, I can manage all my arrays all together, all at once. You can see all my arrays over here, right? But if I go down to storage over here, right, and this is showing all my volumes, I'd probably want to filter this guy down to just the Alletra MP, right, and apply that, and we can see these volumes. I just felt that inside this environment, if I look at the volumes sets over here, that it's a little bit easier to kind of identify. It happens a little bit quicker than up in the cloud. Not that it's too long. I just find that I can flip the screens and show you things that happen over here a little bit quicker. So at any rate, what I do wish to show you is I have all these volumes that exist here. And when we use this plugin, each virtual machine will create its own volume on the data store. So for example, here's this Windows 2022 incident that I'm using for snapshots, right? That volume will be over here. Now, I wish they named it a little better, these volumes a little bit better, but if I click on this volume, we'll see down here under the comments that this is the volume for that virtual machine. All right, so for example, and right now we could see, right now I've got 7 volumes configured. If I go and create a new virtual machine, so I'm going to click add, I'm going to select that, the VM Essentials environment. All right, I'm just going to call this delete me so I know to get rid of it later on. I'm going to click next and configure my machine. I'm going to do a small Ubuntu server. Right, I'm going to put it on my Alletra MP storage. I got to select the network, and then I'm going to select an image, and I'm just going to select my my base Ubuntu image just to show you something. So again, I'm going to click next. All right, I'm not going to run a task on it. Here's my summary screen. So again, up here you can see I've got 7 volumes, but if I click complete, and this will take a few clicks, but when I go back up there, look, there'll be another volume that gets created that'll support this creation of a virtual machine. So each volume, each virtual machine that you create on the array will have a volume. And there we can see now we have 8 that's created. And let's see if we can figure out which one. There's the virtual machine for that volume. So, what's the benefit of doing this? Well, there's a lot of benefits of being able to manage like this. We could also look over here. We can see new data is loaded. So we can also look at the cloud and see this volume getting added. So what's nice about this? Well, I can set up different priority optimization each one of these volumes, because maybe you have an important database server and I don't want that virtual machine to be scratching on the same volume that the other virtual machines work on. Maybe I want to do site-to-site replication and I want to replicate individual machines inside this environment, not everything that goes over, right? So there's benefits of it. I think what's the most tangible benefit out of this is really snapshots, and that's what I want to spend a little time talking to you guys about, is snapshots in this environment. So if I go over here again, I have this virtual machine over here called snapshot. All right, and if I look under backups here, you'll see that I have 4 snapshots that exist. Now, before I go in and talk about this, let's talk about snapshots on traditional virtualized environments, or even VM Essentials without the Alletra MP plugin being utilized. All right, so snapshots are file-based. Right, so when you go to take a snapshot, right, in VM or in VM Essentials with traditional storage, right, what it's going to do is take its virtual machine hard drive file in VMware, that's a VMDK2 file. In VM Essentials, that's a QCOW2 file. It's going to take that and it's going to freeze that. And it's going to create a Delta file for the changes that happen inside that environment. Right, as that file gets bigger, right, as you create more snapshots, right, the virtualization stack needs to go through all that to parse that out, to figure out the information. So that's why a lot of times people will say that when you create snapshots inside virtual environments, you want to get rid of them as soon as possible. So for example, I'll a lot of times take a snapshot in a virtualized environment before I apply a big major software update to an application, right? So this way, if the software update doesn't work or fails, I have a place to revert to very quickly to get up and running. But again, that's file-based. But when we look at the special integration between VM Essentials and the Alletra MP B10000 based system, these turn into all hardware snapshots, so array-based snapshots. So if I go up to my Alletra MP, right here is my snapshot, this virtual machine called snapshot. If you go down here, we can see 4 copies, and these are each of those snapshots that relate directly to these. All right, and I could actually go over here, and what we'll do is we'll go over to actions, and I'll create a snapshot. All right, we'll click complete. It'll take a few seconds to show up over here, but I can go up and we can see now it's 5 snapshots that are listed up here. So very fast creation of snapshots that are array based. So you can keep these around a little bit longer. Here we can see the 5th one up here as well, right? And you can get rid of them if you wanted to right away, but you can hang on to these snapshots without worrying about necessarily having performance impacts inside your environment. Again, I deleted that. If we go back up here, we can see now I've got 4 copies. Good. And these snapshots work like the other snapshots inside the environment. So for example, if I go up to the console of this guy, all right, we all know this guy who's got their desktop filled with icons, right? And you probably want to do this, go over and delete this, right? You want to delete all their icons in their desktop because maybe it drives you crazy, right? But the truth be told, right, I'm a little bit like that. My desktop looks pretty bad. So I feel guilty now. So maybe I want to restore this virtual machine. So I'm going to go back over to my backups. I'm going to take my snapshot and I'm going to revert that. And we'll come back in a little bit and we'll see that will become available. It'll be back to where it was, and I'll have all that garbage on the desktop. All right, so all the features and functionalities work with this. So there's another capability that does exist. We can see my delete me virtual machine has kind of come up. Storage migration. So if I look at this virtual machine here, All right, and I look under storage, you'll see right now it exists on local storage. So this is not on the Alletra NP. And if I choose, I want to move that over the Alletra NP, I can certainly do that. Right, and the way you do like the storage vMotion alternative, if you will, is go over to Actions and then reconfigure, and then you change this to the Alletra NP. And before I click the reconfigure button, let's go back and look over here. Right now I've got 8 volumes. We're going to get another one that's going to get created after this is done. Whoops, that's the cloud. We can refresh that. So I'm going to click reconfigure. And then we'll see that this resize is happening. It's a resize, and that's a little misleading, but it's reallocating my QCOW file. Again, we use QCOWs instead of VMDK files, right? It's moving that up into the shared storage, and it might be starting to get created. There it is. It's already starting to get created up here as well. That's not it. It's in here. There it is. So it's moving that virtual machine up into this shared storage. All right, so that's kind of the thought process that I want to give you around this. Let's see if our snapshot has been reverted yet. Maybe it's starting to start up. We could take a look. Let's see. Go over to the console. It might be ready. Yep, looks like it is. Let's log in. And there, we'll be able to tell in a second, as soon as this logs in, that all my icons are back. So that certainly works. And obviously we get the crash consistency message. Right, so my messaging here is everybody's looking at VM Essentials as an alternative to the what VMware is kind of doing in the marketplace. I've spent a lot of time talking to a lot of you resellers that are out there. Right, some of you guys are a little bit nervous about the Linux component of all this. I wouldn't be, especially when we start looking at the integration between VM Essentials and the Alletra MPB 10,000, especially with the plugin. Right, it makes it easier to be able to set up this environment with shared storage. It also brings you a ton of efficiencies in your environment, especially when we talk about the way the volumes are created and the snapshot capability. All right, so that'll be my piece. I think I hand it back off to you, Ann. Ann, you want to close things out or?
Yeah, I just want to, we're up at the top of the hour. If anybody has any questions, please raise your hand right now. Otherwise, we are so thankful that you guys joined us. We appreciate your time and your attention. And we hope you'll come back next week for our PCBE session. Have a great day.
Everyone have a nice day.
Bailey, you're going to stop recording, right?